What's the most amazing thing about the universe? That it exists. And it came from somewhere. Or nowhere. I really hate thinking about this kind of stuff. It kinda feels like, if I think too hard about why matter exists, or where it came from and other similar questions, that everything might suddenly come undone, or cease to exist. I'd say that's fair if my Sims started glaring at me with raised eyebrows instead of going about their busy lives. I'd turn off the computer too. It must be true that either it didn't exist, then it did, or 2. It has always existed. What even is time? The space in which space can change. The space of space. Take the 13.8 billion year lifetime of the universe and map it onto a single year, so that the Big Bang takes place on January 1st at midnight, and the current time is mapped to December 31st at midnight. On this timeline, anatomically modern humans don't show up until about 11:52 p.m. on December 31st, and all of recorded history takes place during the last 10 seconds. This concept is called the cosmic calendar, popularized by Carl Sagan. Edit. Changed from humans don't show up until about 10:30 p.m. on December 31st to the more accurate anatomically modern humans don't show up until about 11:52 p.m. on December 31st. The only way we can see the universe is from inside it. We will likely never possess any way of viewing our universe from outside its physicality. This is one I thought about recently. I believe that Carl Sagan said that we, sentient entities, are a way for the cosmos to know itself. With this in mind, when we think about the end of our universe, whether it be through a big shrink, big cooling, or what have you, we get apprehensive. We probably will never see this end. Many of us will be dead. Yet, we still get a cold fear in our hearts. We are also a way for the cosmos to fear its demise. Whales are the biggest known creatures in the known universe. They're the biggest animal, but the biggest organism is an aspen tree colony that has expanded over miles. And the second largest animal is your mama. That every single random event, since the dawn of creation, the birth and death of stars, planets, and galaxies, the very genesis of life has led to you being here right now to ask this question. We are a long way off from truly understanding the origin and ending of the universe, but we have good theories and time will see that knowledge refined into fact. This is because we live at just the right time. Remember how galaxies are actually flying apart? This movement is also accelerating. Galactic structures will fly apart faster and faster. They will eventually exceed the speed at which we could ever hope to travel. They may exceed or match the speed of light. But that means that light shining from these quickly receding galaxies will ever reach us, and no ship could ever catch up to them. They will not see cosmic background radiation. So you couldn't see them with any kind of telescope. You'd see stuff in your local group. And that's it. And you'd think that the universe is a foamy cluster of galaxies that has an ending. Future civilizations may never know the true nature of the universe and could think it finite. Imagine being transported to a parallel universe that was almost identical to our own. Somewhere out in the vastness of that universe, there is a tiny planet. This much is true in both universes. On this planet, there is a beach, and on that beach, there is a small stone. Once again, both universes are alike in this regard. Beneath that stone, however, there are several million grains of sand, and while they all are in precisely the same location in each universe, one of them, a tiny speck of particularly clear quartz, hewn from a larger hole millions of years before, has a single atom that is positioned a fraction of a femtometer differently than its twin in the mirror dimension. You may think that such an insignificant difference would label these two universes as being functionally identical, and you would be right. In fact, they are so similar that the multiverse has long since combined them into one reality. That single atom in that tiny speck of sand on that lonesome beach on a distant planet merely occupies two spaces at once, seeming to an outside observer to vibrate back and forth at a predictable rate. That every atom in existence seems to do the same is probably a coincidence. The multiverse interpretation of quantum mechanics is an intriguing idea. There's a related thought experiment called quantum suicide. Basically, you try yourself with a gun that only fires when a spin half particle with two possible states is measured to have spin in a certain direction when the trigger is pulled. In quantum mechanics, before the spin is measured, it exists as a superposition of both spin up and spin down simultaneously. If the particle is measured to have spin down, it doesn't fire. If it is spin up, it fires, but the idea is that to you, and you alone, as the observer, it will always seem as if the gun doesn't fire. According to the multiverse interpretation, the particle actually collapses into both states upon measurement, but in two different universes, and usually we only see one, because we as observers are randomly shunted into one of the possible universes along with the collapse of the particle's state. However, in this case, in one of the universes you would be dead due to the trigger setting off. So you should only experience the second possibility, that is staying alive, because that is the only one in which you are still conscious. No matter how many times you pull the trigger, the idea goes, the gun never fires and you should always survive, from your own perspective. An outside observer, watching you carry out the quantum suicide, would not always see you survive though, since he would remain alive and conscious in both possible timelines, and to him, you have a 50/50 chance of dying, as expected. Hydrogen plus time equals people and planets. That somehow all the particles accumulated in a specific way, and in specific quantities, to give you conscious thought. There are 10 million particles in the universe that we can observe. Your mama took the ugly ones and put them into one nerd. That whatever our problems are, big or small, it won't matter in 1 million years. Worst being a nuclear war or something. How young it is. People look at the universe being 13.7 billion years old and say that is ancient. That is nothing. Stars will continue to form for another 100 trillion years. Even after that, stellar remnants will exist for quadrillions of years. Black holes will still produce energy that can be used by intelligent civilizations for 10,100 years. Keep in mind, if biological life doesn't destroy itself, we will just keep getting more and more knowledge. It's probably a safe bet that within 500 years, which is nothing on universal timescales, we will be an interstellar species that has long ago transcended biology. There is no telling what our descendants will do for the remaining life of the universe. The 4 to 5 billion years of biological evolution of life on Earth will be looked at as an embryonic stage for endless quintillions of years of real life to begin post-biology. They will view the universe as their oyster, a place of infinite possibilities, while we are still just spending our days trying not to die, and trying to avoid being punished by our brains with pain. Black holes will still produce energy that can be used by intelligent civilizations for 10,100 years. The thing that freaks me out is that no matter how far off a point you imagine in the future, that moment will eventually be now. The passage of time is inexorable. No matter how far off a point in time you imagine, time will keep moving forward without fail and reach the moment you imagined. As a child, I used to imagine what it would be like to be an adult. Back then, it felt like 10 years or 20 years in the future was so far away. But that 10 years, 20 years passed. I'm now an adult and have reached the point in time that I used to imagine was so far off. So too, will the year 10,100 eventually come? So too, will the year 1 billion and 10 million eventually come? No matter how big a number one come up with, time will keep ticking and eventually reach that number. At that point, the universe will have been an empty and cold void for most of its history*. Cold emptiness will be the universe's natural state. The time when the universe had planets, stars, black holes, galaxies, and life was only a momentary glitch, barely even registering in the overwhelming majority of void and emptiness. Like the snap of a finger compared to an eternity. *THIS is assuming a heat death scenario. Imagine a proton is a bunch of kids spinning around holding hands. Now imagine they all let go and go tumbling away. Now imagine those kids were the building blocks of all matter. Inanimate/non-living objects eventually formed to make sentient, living beings that questioned their own existence and want to find facts about the process between the beginning of the universe to now, and even want to anticipate the future. All from some hydrogens floating around and doing stuff. Kinda similar. Everything we have on this earth comes from this earth. This means that it was always possible to have electricity, planes, internet, Wi-Fi, mobile phones etc. even in the Stone Ages. Humans just hadn't invented it yet. Thank you so much for watching, and soobscrooble if you want.